once again, a warm welcome to all of you. So, first and foremost, before we begin, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all our speakers for being here with us and for taking the time to talk about a very important subject. So, I would like to request if our esteemed panelist and our moderator kindly take their seat on the stage. India is one of the few countries which has faced an issue of this scale and for this long. A group within the state which started looking as the Indian state as its enemy and the Indian nation as the villain. Uh, it stopped a lot of progress which the governments, preceding governments, all the governments were hoping to do. Uh, Many of you who are young today might not know the horrific stories and the horrific tragedies that have happened in the past. When we say the Red Corridor, all of you look at a very small image, but just 20, 25 years ago, not even 25, I think even 10, 15 years ago, it was a huge block stretching all the way to Chhattisgarh and Telangana and Andhra Pradesh and Jharkhand, a lot of states. So, when we say what is the way ahead, it's now quite important that now that we can say that we are a Naxal Mukt Bharat, what is the roadmap for these red corridor districts? Because without these districts, India cannot grow. We cannot have a developed Viksit Bharat without the contribution of these districts. And we have a very good panel here today, people who can give you a security perspective, people who can give you a developmental perspective. And my colleague and friend Kamal is here to moderate these discussions and to take them in the direction that we want. So, a quick introduction about Kamal. He's an assistant professor at Rishihood University, and he's also an alumni of the institute. Was part of the very first batch, second batch, if I'm not wrong, second batch of the Policy Bootcamp, a program that we've been doing for the past 10 years. He's worked in various think tanks, has a background in IR, and also a fairly good understanding of geopolitical and local issues within India. So the right person to moderate this panel. So with this, I'm going to request Kamal to begin the proceedings of the day.
Namaste and good evening, everyone. This is a discussion we are organizing as part of the Viksit Bharat series at the Rashtram School of Public Leadership in collaboration with the India Habitat Center. And we are very grateful to have such distinguished panelists with us and grateful to each and every one of you for making time for a discussion like this, and including our students from Rishihood University who've traveled all the way for this discussion. Thank you for being here. And I want to start with that. Back when I was a student, it was the year 2010. And it was just about 5 days away from the IIT entrance exam, which I was preparing for. I picked up the newspaper and it said Dantewada massacre. This kind of puzzled me, right? The word massacre, like many young Indians, is something that you come across in your history textbooks, particularly in the context of the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. So here I was wondering, why is the word massacre on the newspaper in contemporary India? In many ways, my interest in the subject started then. But what happened then was, that 76 security personnel lost their lives in that incident in Dantewada, CRPF security personnel. And I paused, and just days later, I think there were more attacks. This was not an isolated incident. And over many years, India has witnessed repeated ambushes, attacks on civilians, political representatives, infrastructure, security forces across large parts of the country. And for a long period, the left-wing extremism problem was described as one of India's or the gravest security challenge that India has faced in recent decades. And at its peak, the so-called Red Corridor spanned across several parts of eastern and southern India. But history does not stand still. And over the last decade especially, India has seen major progress in reducing and in many ways largely eliminating left-wing extremism today. And this has been done through a combination of a sustained security measures, governance initiatives, engagement at the local level, expanding roads, infrastructure, and so on. Just a few days ago, and that is also the context with which we are having this discussion, the Honorable Home Minister Amit Shah ji declared in the Parliament that today India is effectively Naxal-free, with the with the Maoist Politburo and the central structure largely eliminated. This underlines the extraordinary scale of the change that has taken place in recent years. And many districts which were once deeply affected have seen a very dramatic restoration of normalcy. And that is why this evening's theme is so significant and this discussion becomes important, because it was not only about, of course, how the security challenge was faced, but also what comes next. How do we convert these security lessons into durable peace? How do we ensure development reaches the last person? How do we understand these challenges that are various challenges that are experienced by people on the ground? And how do we prevent, most of all, old grievances from resurfacing again in new forms? So there's a security dimension to this, there's a governance dimension to this, there's an ideological and political dimension to this, and there's also the experience on the ground. And to do this, we are very fortunate to have a stellar panel with us. Um, our first speaker is Dr. Shantanu Mukherjee ji, who is, of course, an IPS officer of the UP cadre. He brings nearly 5 decades of distinguished experience in policing, in national security, in strategic affairs. He has served the police service, the Ministry of External Affairs, the Special Protection Group, which is responsible for the security of various prime ministers, and has worked on various, and also has worked in the Cabinet Secretariat on very important assignments. And post-retirement, he served as the National Security Advisor to Mauritius. Currently, of course, he is the advisor to NatStrat with their Center for Research on Strategic and Security Issues, and remains a very well-known commentator on security and geopolitics. Our second speaker, Shri Yogesh Mohan Dikshit ji, is a former senior officer of the Indian Ordnance Factory Service and has an extensive experience across ministries of Home Affairs and Defense. And during his tenure in MHA, he worked closely on the multi-pronged national strategy to counter left-wing extremism, covering security measures, governance issues, financial inclusion, and so on. He has also been associated with several national governance initiatives and brings very important administrative insight to the discussion. Our third speaker is Sri Neelu Ranjan ji. He's a senior journalist with over 27 years of experience in the media. He's worked with leading organizations like Dainik Jagran, IBN 7, Aaj Tak. And since 2008 in particular, he has closely covered MHA and internal security issues, be it Naxalism, be it terrorism, be it other issues in Jammu and Kashmir as well as the Northeast. And he brings very valuable ground level understanding of the subject that we are going to discuss. And our fourth speaker is Shri Shivesh Pratap Singh ji, who is a technology management consultant, a public policy analyst, and author with over 15 years of professional experience across global operations in various countries. He is an alumnus of IIM Calcutta and has worked extensively on strategy, sustainability, and operational excellence and process transformation. He has engaged in policy research at the Dr. Shama Prasad Mukherjee Research Foundation and has authored several books. So let's move to the first speaker. So we'll have opening remarks from each of the speakers for about 10 minutes, and then we'll have a Q&A. I wanted to ask Dr. Shantanu Mukherjee ji, for many years, left-wing extremism has been seen as India's most serious internal security threats. And today we are appearing in a very different moment than what we did in the history. From a security and strategic perspective, sir, what has changed in recent years? How has this turnaround been made possible? And also, if you could also perhaps reflect on what are the lessons for the future so that we kind of ensure that this does not repeat itself. So, sir, I would invite you to please take the podium.
I'm grateful to the university for giving me this privilege to address the young minds and to enter into a discussion which is of paramount importance in India. The names are. Very quickly, I will say what my perception was when I was growing up. Many of you, most of you were not born then, and this is 1960s. And when it erupted, it was known as the Naxalite movement. We were growing up. The Naxalite movement was something that it had paralyzed the social fabric, the great movement, the rhythm of our education and everything. Though I'm a Bengali, but I'm settled down in UP. But it was there, that is, the Bengal was in flames. They did not know how to control it. There were killings daily. The vice chancellor was stabbed to death in one of the universities. And it's looked an absolutely mayhem. A complete intellectual generation of that particular state was done away with. People left there, and it has found reflection in many of the novels, particularly of Jhumpa Lahiri and others. This is something I'm trying to give you an idea, how it evolved everything. And then that time as a student, I never thought that one day will come when the nomenclature will come as the red corridors from the Naxalite movement. We knew Naxalbari was a place in North Bengal near Darjeeling, and it created absolutely a bone-chilling experience. Whenever you talk to somebody that you're an Naxalite, people would come for extortion. They will say, you are a Bengali, you are this thing. And there was no hope at all, no flicker of hope. कि ये कभी सुधरेगा. This is something, this problem. This is 60s and the 70s. Now, I come to there. The government was definitely battling. But I thought that there was absolutely no coordinated approach when I say, because now in hindsight I can say that time I also did not. Because there is the combination of, there were some operation, Kamal updated me with Samadhan and other operations, and he mentioned about Datewala. Datewala was something, definitely it was rattling. He was a student, but I had retired from the government service by then, and so many, every day you open. And then from Bengal over these years, I'm jumping it because of the time constraints, it did not confine only to Bengal. It had spread to Chhattisgarh, to MP, to Maharashtra, Telangana, everything. Every particular force. I'm talking to you with authority and as an ex-cop. Somebody in Andhra Pradesh or Telangana, they formed the Greyhounds to counter the Naxal. Their menace was so much, it threatened the national integrity and security. The intelligence was absolutely in tatters. There was no coordination. As I said, that there was absolutely an absolute coordinated approach. The security men on ground, the paramilitary forces, the CAPF, my friend here, with the Home Ministry is tackling the strategic affairs and all. There are multiple agencies, but later this Cobra came up from the CRP and a specialized force out of this thing. The intelligence inflow from various agencies, there was nothing. In 2009, let me tell you, my dear young friends, I was attending a very top security-related meet, and there a very well-known security expert, a fairly senior, while addressing the gathering in Delhi, he said whether we could use air surveillance or not, the air power or not. He did not say bombarding and all, not at all. But the thing is this, the magnitude was such that everybody looked helpless. Everybody looked absolutely as if there is no way out what is going. Then gradually we find, touching upon how it evolved, that there was a lot of application of thoughts that we must do things. We should engage them in talks. We should tone up, invigorate our intelligence. We should motivate our, imagine in the Datewala CRPF, so many were killed. And a force, the uniform force, they tend to be demoralized. Keeping their morale intact and continuously motivating them to fight is a big challenge. But all these things started happening. Again, towards the positivity. There was a concrete policy which came into being. One of the best IPS officers of the country was chosen as the advisor of the LWE, that is my friend Mr. Vijay Kumar, and he had come on deputation. He was guiding, and I was in touch with him out of academic interest, because this was not my subject, unfortunately. But I was interested, nevertheless, as an Indian national, as an alert fellow, that what is all happening. And Vijay Kumar kept me saying, and then I came to know how difficult. Now that the solution has come, you might think कि ये फट से हो गया, but the effort behind it, my distinguished guest, Mr. Dixit, would be able to shed more light on this, that how much coordinated effort was behind it to make it a success. It wasn't easy. Piecing everything together, mobilizing everything together, the government machinery and everything, was a very uphill task. एक इस प्रकार का था कि जो कि लगता था कभी संभव, young mind should say. So now he quoted the Home Minister as saying, I go through the news and everything, we found that we have come a long way. And touch wood, fingers crossed, peace has come at last everywhere. In Maharashtra, in Chhattisgarh and everything, killings, touch wood, have come to a stop. And I'm sure that with the alertness and the credit given to our agencies on ground, it is unlikely to recur. But that is where, because it is also said that what is the growth corridors, our experts on social aspects will be able to elaborate more. I am inadequate on that we find we must continue to consolidate the gains so that the sacrifices of the forces do not go in vain. The efforts of the bureaucracy or the polity who were involved in the decision making do not go waste, do not go astray. There should be a complete focus to consolidate, to sustain, particularly the growth part of it. How do we do it? I do not have a prescription, but I feel that the dialogue, the continued communication with the remnants, the major leadership has been wiped out, must be in touch with them. Not only that, in terms of crisis, we reach out to them, that we should be in continuous touch with them, the dialogue. Number two, the development, whether it is agriculture, whether it is in industries, whether it is on the farming, agriculture sector, we should continue to see that. So that, the human element part is the sociological aspect. They should not think that the authorities have let them down. The trust deficit should not be there. Corporate sector should come in with the CCR projects. Another thing which I suddenly, as an innovative thing which comes to, I've got the IM graduates here, so I am not really up to that. But the thing is that integrating into the mainstream is extremely important. I do not have a ready-made prescription, but like, for example, I was pursuing the Afghanistan thing, which has been under terror for the last over 2 decades or so. But we found that despite being struck by terror, they were producing cricketers. In Kashmir also we found that in the Ranji they were playing. How about these tribal belts and others, those affected in the Red Corridor? There we encourage them to come into the sports. Like we see, gentlemen, is from the Home Ministry, in the Northeast it was once isolated. Now we see that the Northeast representation is complete in various fields, whether it is the aviation sector or hospitality sector there. So all those affected or marred in the Red Corridor thing must be integrated, and for which it should not be left only to the government, I would say. There you are young minds here. You belong to a good university. You've got good professors. You think yourself. Don't leave it to the government. It is very easy to criticize. The government has done nahi, main kya karu, sarkar ne nahi kiya. Aapne kya kiya? You study the situation. You bring out papers. You do research. Here's a distinguished fellow here who is doing it. And then is a combined effort, a very focused approach there to bring out this thing, whether in the field of sports, medicine, health sector, agriculture, then everybody's together, one unison. So they think they are part of this country, and whatever has happened is a thing of the past. It's a new India, and now this Red Corridor ceases to exist. It has to be seen as green and continue to grow in leaps and bounds. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. And like you rightly said, there have been a range of policy measures which have yielded the kind of results that we see today uh, over the last decade in particular. And it's something that has to be consolidated upon by the Indian state further, so that those gains are not lost and we build on that and then transform things the way they are. So security, of course, is one aspect of it, and in fact, the government has also had a strategy, and the forces have always had a strategy of clear, hold, and build. Right, which is you clear the area of Naxalism, you then hold, and then you build governance, build roads, build infrastructure, and that's where I wanted to ask Yogesh ji to especially enlighten us about the governance aspects. What is the significance, and historically, to what extent has a governance deficit played a role in increasing this problem? Was it the governance deficit which was a problem? If so, to what extent? And in the response and in the successes that we've seen in recent years, what role has expanding infrastructure, financial inclusion, building of various roads and other governance delivery mechanisms, welfare schemes which have reached people finally after a long time, what role that has played in this transformation? And going forward, how should it look like? So if you could share that perspective with us, and I would like you to please take the podium.
Namaskar. First of all, thank you very much, Kamalji. Thank you very much for the university. Because now, जैसे हम हिंदी में कहते हैं कि अब ये जो फिनोमिना है इसको हम इतिहास के पन्नों में दफन करने की तरफ हैं. But the onus lies with the civil society. I request all of you guys here, because this phenomena now physically we are able to compress it, suppress it, and decimate it, but it still remains in the brain. And so we should all work that there is no fertilizer, no soil moisture, nothing is available to that, so that it spring back. That's why it's very essential. Today's session is very essential, because he mentioned about Datewada incident. Precisely, it was on 6th of April 2010. 76 people, our soldiers, have lost their lives. If you just want to know the magnitude of this problem, because it is said that it was one of the biggest challenge to the internal security of this nation, you just see the magnitude. When you count the numbers of dead bodies in any of the terrorist attack, how many? But in Naxalite phenomena, in 2010, 1,005 people have lost their lives. That includes 720 civilians. That includes 285 security personnel. This is the magnitude of this one. But somehow, जिसे हम कहते हैं ना, हम लोग कुछ उदासीन से रहे हैं इसके प्रति. हमारा मेन मीडिया, हमारी सिविल सोसाइटी थोड़ा सा उदासीन रही है. Now this is the time to wake up. And because if we go by the constitution and the fundamental principles of our constitution and this nation, the one thing is very clear. You can have any ideology, you can have any idea, you can have any type of thing, but without any instrument of violence. But this basic phenomena, the Maoists, the Naxalites, they use the violence as their element of strategy to capture the power. It was the war against the Indian state. It was not like a small phenomena. It was a war against the Indian state. 1967, that incident from which it has come, in 2004, when the CPI Maoist was formed by merging Maoist MCC and the CPI ML People's War Group. And after that, this violence, in 2010, it reached to the peak, with 1,005 people have lost their life. So, for this type of problem, when, as per constitution, the police and public order is a state subject, and there are so many states, 11 states were suffering from this phenomena. If we go by today's boundaries of the districts, 134 districts were affected by left-wing extremism when I joined in 2017. So it's not a history. It's a recent past, what we are talking about. But now we are talking about it's no more. You can see how much efforts have gone into that. It's a whole of government approach. Security measures, strengthening the state to fight against this phenomena, because they were not simple criminals. So police were not able to do anything against them. They have a full-fledged army, People's Liberation Guerrilla Army, the dreaded Battalion Number 2. They have all the elements of army. They have commanders, they have their governments. They were running the governments in these 134 districts. Millions of people, even in the most affected districts, 35 districts were there. 4 crore people were there in those 35 districts. I am talking about 134 districts. So this was the magnitude of problem. And how we could achieve? Because I was associated with all the efforts from 2017, and I have seen whatever solution comes in your mind, whatever item comes in your mind, I'm giving you the assurance we had been doing it. Anybody can think about any solution, but for last 6, 7 years, 8 years, we had been doing it. So this type of effort has gone, whether it is security measures, whether it is about strengthening of the security apparatus of the states, whether the infrastructure. A lot of efforts have gone into the infrastructure because the most dreaded weapon is development, विकास. सबसे बड़ा हथियार है यदि हमको किसी जाना है, क्योंकि यहाँ पर हम ऐसे लोगों से बात कर रहे हैं जिनको के बर्ग लाया गया है, जहाँ पर हमारी स्टेट पावर कभी पहुंची ही नहीं. Kamal was talking about the deficit of governance. There was no governance at all. There is an area called Abujmar, mysterious mountain. Even we were not knowing, the district administration was not knowing what is there behind that. Now we are making roads in that. We are making trains, tracks in those areas. Nobody was knowing what is there inside. Even the survey was not done. I can give precisely a few examples, like Sonpur-Baroda Road. Now it's almost 80% is complete. Earlier, nothing was known to us. We have used drones to survey those areas and made the roads there. In those areas, 17,600 kilometers road we have made. And with a record speed, 12,000 kilometers were approved in December 2016. After that, DPRs and all these things. And from 2019 to 2025, I was there up to September 25. Around 10,000 kilometers roads we have made. This is not even possible in the Delhi, but we have made it. Why and how? Because there was a free hand to the officers, to the departments. When a rule is any constraint for anything, the rule can be changed, but progress cannot be. This type of effort has gone. We have tweaked the guidelines. We have changed the rules just to see that the progress is there, because it was like a यज्ञ के अंदर हम लोग भी उसके अंदर आहुति की तरह ही देते थे, उसको इस तरीके से निष्पादन करते थे. So that was the mission and vision we have with our great Home Minister. He had been reviewing it at Home Minister level, who is, I do not know if anybody is knowing about the size of Home Ministry, and he looks after that. From the internal security, borders, to the Hindi, official language, he sees everything. But he was reviewing it on monthly basis, fortnightly basis. Earlier it was being reviewed on biannual basis or like that. He was so focused that it is so, the review was there at all level. Home Minister Sahab was reviewing, Home Secretary Sahab was reviewing, and all of us. And I have simply given the example like roads. If you talk about the mobile towers, because now everybody talks about means data, because जैसे होता है ना बेसिक नीड्स, जैसे हम पहले रोटी कपड़ा और मकान कहते थे, आज की डेट में मोबाइल शामिल है, बाकी चीज़ें मिले ना मिले, है ना. मकान मिल जाएगा लेके EMI पे, है ना. रोटी वगैरह ब्लिंकिट से और से जोमेटो से आ जाएगी, है ना. कपड़े भी आजकल ऐसे आ जाते हैं. बट अगर मोबाइल नहीं है तो ये कुछ नहीं हो सकता. 10,000 mobile towers were installed in those areas. Then roads, I already talked, around 17,600 kilometers roads. Those were areas where even the contractors were not able to go there. The DM was not able to go there. SP was not go. Now we are making roads with the help of BRO. कॉन्ट्रैक्टर भाग जाता है तो उसके लिए क्या करेंगे? तो नहीं, एक डिसीजन लिया कि नहीं, इसको BRO से बनाएंगे. Means there was no impediment. Then what else we require? When we have roads, road is basic unit of development. Then trains also. Recently, after 20 years, one project has recently cleared 145 kilometer. And similarly, because three type of connectivities are important. First is road and rail connectivity. Second is mobile connectivity. And third is the financial connectivity. More than 6,000 post offices which have the financial dealing capacity and capability. IPPB, Indian Postal Pay Bank, it is enabled there. So more than 6,000 post offices we opened. Then around 1,000 bank branches, ATMs, there are also around 950 ATMs, and more than 30,000 banking correspondents we had for those areas. Then comes to skill development. Skill development, 48 ITIs were sanctioned for those areas. 62 skill development centers were approved, and most of them are now operational and functional, except for ITI, except for Mandla, every ITI is functional now. Then for even means of these 134 and 26 districts, 35 were most affected. So we ensured that every district to have a Kendriya Vidyalaya or Navodaya Vidyalaya. 2 Navodaya Vidyalayas and 1 Kendriya Vidyalayas. That also was. In those areas where people cannot go, I'll just give you one example. एक बार हमको एक गांव में जाना था, नक्सल अफेक्टेड था. कैसे पहुंचे होंगे? यहाँ से फ्लाइट पकड़ के रायपुर गए, रायपुर से हेलीकॉप्टर से लेके टिप्पापुरम गए, और टिप्पापुरम से आगे जो ना बाइक से गए, क्योंकि कोई रास्ता ही नहीं था जाने का. और अगर 4 व्हीलर से जाते तो IED से उसको उड़ा दिया जाता. These were the areas I'm talking about, where we are making roads. How is it possible? It is all because of the complete setup, the whole of government approach. First is security, then development. I talked about ITIs, schools, and whatever you think of. Means I can give number of examples, but the time is limited, so that's why I'm just restricting to the major areas where we have worked. Hospital. In that area, it's very difficult to have hospital. You know, it was affected by Naxalite. कभी भी जाके कोई ID से लेके blast कर सकता है, कुछ कर सकता है. So a special model was adopted, wherein NMDC was inducted, where a private sector hospital was inducted, and a government hospital was made operational, with part of CSR fund and part of the government fund. I'll give one example also. I think you might have all heard about aspirational districts. Aspirational district, this was the vision of our Honorable Prime Minister, that the most backward districts, first of all, he changed the name to backward to the aspirational districts. So initially, 100 districts were taken who were at the lowest of the rank, and with the target कि हमको उसी लेवल पे लेके आएंगे क्योंकि बाकी districts हैं. Later on, 12 other districts were also added, so 112. Of these 112, 35 districts were given to us because these were most affected by LWE, and we had been monitoring those districts, the progress on fortnightly basis. 5 KRAs and 47 KPIs. With the help of 87 data points, we had been monitoring the progress. Monitoring the delta means change. And as per the scheme means which district comes at number 1, they get 10 crore rupees projects actually. It's like that. So our district, which had 2 challenges together, because in a left-wing extremism affected areas, there was a vicious circle. Why development is not there? Because of left-wing extremism. And why left-wing extremism? Because of the lack of development. So we had to take care of both the aspects simultaneously, security aspects and the development together. So this was the problem basically for the left-wing extremism area. So out of these 112, 35 had another challenge also. It's not only lack of development. So that's how another innovative model was adopted. Tata Trust was inducted to give us money. Transformation of Rural India Foundation was inducted to give us resource. Money was given by Tata Trust and resource was given by them, and the money was given by Tata Trust to TRIF. That's how we engaged 80 people who worked on ground of left-wing, most affected left-wing extremism affected districts. I'll tell you, our districts have performed better than the other districts. And it is all because of the efforts, monitoring, reviewing at the highest level. And that's how, if you go today and see those districts, there was tremendous change. I'll give you one example. There is one program called Tribal Youth Action Program. When I joined in 2017, I went to one of the program as a chief guest. So I normally do not have, मतलब हैबिट नहीं है कि मैं उनसे अंदर स्पीच दूं या बात करूं. बच्चों से बात किया. मैं आपको बताता हूं, अगर उन्होंने जो बोला ना, आप सब एक स्वप्न है, एक ड्रीम है उन लोगों के लिए. एंड दैट गिव द इंस्पिरेशन टू मी ऑल्सो. जब उनसे पूछा कि अच्छा यहाँ आके आपको कैसा लगा, उन्होंने बोला हमने ट्रेन पहली बार देखा. आज की डेट में लोग मेट्रो में चलते हैं, RRTS अभी चलता है यहाँ से मेरठ तक, सेमी हाई स्पीड ट्रेन. उन्होंने ट्रेन पहली बार देखा था. दूसरे ने बताया कि जब मेरे पास में डॉक्टर आया मेडिकल करने के लिए, मुझे लगा मेरा किडनी निकाल लेंगे. दीज वर द एरियाज. और सबसे खास बात है, उनको मोबाइल तो आप सोच सकते हैं कैसे होगा, लेकिन जब मैं 30th September, that program was so dear to me that when I was superannuating on 30th of September 25, I went to a program on 25th of September and I asked the guys, मैंने कहा बताओ मोबाइल किसके पास में है? There was nobody without mobile. And I asked, what is the signal level? बोले अब we have the signal. This is the change. This is the real impact. आप इम्पैक्ट किसी इंडिकेटर से जाके या वैसे देखोगे, उससे पता नहीं चलता है. आप लोगों से बात कीजिए, वो आपको बताएंगे. वो फिर आपसे अपेक्षा भी रखेंगे. पहले वो लोग पानी में चल के जाते थे 10 किलोमीटर अपने स्कूल के लिए. आज की डेट में कहेंगे साहब हमारा जो सड़क है वो आधा किलोमीटर दूर है, अब जल्दी बनवाइए. दिस इज द चेंज. लोगों को लगेगा आधा किलोमीटर के लिए बोल रहे हैं, इसका मतलब सड़क नहीं है वहाँ. लेकिन ये सोचना चाहिए, आज से 8 साल पहले वो लोग ये कहते थे कि हम लोग 10 किलोमीटर पैदल जाते हैं अपने स्कूल के लिए. दिस इज द चेंज इन दोज एरिया. और हमको क्या करना है आगे फ्यूचर के लिए, दैट इज द बेसिक रिक्वायरमेंट. हमको वो ट्रस्ट बिल्ड करना है, हमको इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पर ध्यान देना है, और साथ में सबसे पहले उनके साथ एंगेजमेंट. उनका वर्ल्ड व्यू क्या है, वेदर इट्स इंक्लूसिव डेवलपमेंट और इज इंट्रूसिव डेवलपमेंट. आप देखेंगे बीच में बस्तर पंडुम हुआ, बस्तर ओलंपिक्स हुआ, एक बहुत अच्छी इनिशिएटिव लिया गया, बस्तरिया बटालियन. बचपन से हर एक किसी को है कि वो पुलिस की वर्दी पहनाएंगे और वो गन लेके जाएगा, हीरो की तरह देखते ना. तो नक्सलाइट तो उसी ड्रेस में जाते थे, लेकिन बस्तरिया बटालियन बनाया तो अब यानी कि हीरो इंडियन पुलिस फोर्स का है, CRPF का है, क्योंकि वो ड्रेस वो जाएगा, वो एकदम स्मार्ट वे से जाता है जब वो CRPF का जवान. दिस इज द इम्पैक्ट, दिस इज द सिस्टम. तो हमको उस तरीके से एंगेजमेंट करना है और लोगों के साथ एंगेज होके, जैसे सर ने ही बताया, मेन स्ट्रीमिंग ऑफ सरेंडर्ड कार्डर, दैट्स वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. और साथ में मतलब उन सारे रिसोर्सेज को यूज़ करना. हॉट स्पॉट्स ऑफ रिक्रूटमेंट, इनको मतलब अरेस्ट करना है कि वहाँ से कोई भी हॉट स्पॉट नहीं रहे जहाँ से रिक्रूटमेंट होता है. और द मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टेंट वन, यू ऑल पीपल, द पार्ट ऑफ सिविल सोसाइटी, वो इन सब चीज़ों के बारे में ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा जागरूकता फैलाएं. एंड आई रिक्वेस्ट ऑल ऑफ यू टू बी द पार्ट ऑफ दिस प्रोसेस. एंड जो हिस्ट्री है उसको हिस्ट्री में ही रहने दिया जाए, उसी किताब में हम पढ़ें. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Yogesh ji. That was a very comprehensive account of the various governance developmental issues, and also you brilliantly brought out the actual impact on the ground, especially in terms of the interventions of the government that have happened over the last few years. And that contrasts so starkly with the magnitude of the problem that you also described that existed earlier. And it's an outcome, like you rightly said, of a lot of coordination, a lot of effort, a lot of understanding of the needs of the people. And I think that perfectly also segues into the next theme that I wanted to ask Neeluji to talk about, which is beyond the numbers and statistics, right? Like Yogeji rightly said, the transformation is at the grassroots and something that is felt and experienced by the local communities. And you've had a very vast experience of reporting from these areas, traveling in these areas. How have local attitudes shifted? What were they before when it comes to the state, when it comes to security forces, when it comes to aspirations? And how have they transformed over time, over the years? And how has that transformation happened, and where are we today when it comes to local attitudes? I could invite you to please speak.
बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। मैं बेसिकली रिपोर्टर हूँ और आज की तारीख में लगातार घूमता रहता हूँ और रिपोर्ट करता हूँ, तो ज़रा सेमिनार वगैरह की आदत मुझे कम है, मतलब बोलता ही नहीं हूँ ज़्यादातर, पहली बार आ रहा हूँ। 2-3 चीज़ें बतानी है मुझे। एक तो आगे जो रोड अहेड है वो डेवलपमेंट का ही नहीं है, ये खतरे जो विचारधारा के हैं वो अभी भी जिंदा हैं, और वो लोग जिंदा हैं जो इसको प्रोटेक्ट करते थे। कैसे करते थे वो मैं आता हूँ, और मैं कुछ अनुभव बताऊंगा जिससे आपको समझ में आएगा कि आखिर वहां के लोगों का दिल कैसे जीता और किस इस पैशन से लड़ाई लड़ी गई। वो लड़ाई जो सीपीआईएमएल वाले लोग जो मायूस कह रहे थे कि ये बस्तर के लोगों का, आदिवासियों के खिलाफ जो है लड़ाई है पुलिस की, उस लड़ाई को कैसे वहां कैडर बेस्ड नक्सलियों तक सीमित किया गया, ये बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है दोनों चीजों के लिए। तो शुरुआत करता हूं दंतेवाड़ा से, क्योंकि सभी ने दंतेवाड़ा के बारे में बोला है, जो 6 अप्रैल 2010 को हुआ। लेकिन किसी ने यह नहीं बताया कि उसके 10 दिन पहले आउटलुक मैगजीन में कवर स्टोरी 20 पेज की लिखी गई और उसमें नक्सलियों को गांधी बताया गया, गांधीयन विद ए गन और मार्चिंग विद नक्सल, और पूरा ये बताया गया कि ये नक्सल जो हैं ये दरअसल यहां के बस्तर के लोगों को बचा रहे हैं। और उसके 10 दिन के अंदर में ही, और ये कहानी ये जो है, आप मैगजीन जाएंगे तो मैगजीन में दे सकते हैं। उस वक्त मैगजीन के जो एडिटर थे विनोद मेहता, उनका एक संस्मरण है द लखनऊ बॉय। लखनऊ बॉय में उन्होंने इसके बारे में विस्तार से लिखा भी है, क्योंकि उस पर चूंकि जब उन्होंने छापा, कवर स्टोरी लिखा अरुंधति राय का, और ये जब मैसेकर हुआ जो 76 लोग मारे गए, तो उसके बाद काफी हंगामा हुआ, उनके खिलाफ उनको चिट्ठी लिखी गई। तो उसमें अपने संस्मरण में जो किताब लिखी है द लखनऊ बॉय, उसमें विस्तार से बताया है। ये समझने वाली बात यह है कि जो लोग नक्सलियों को गांधीयन बता रहे थे कि एक गन लिया हुआ गांधी है, गांधी के पास लाठी होती थी, इनके पास गन है, सिर्फ यही अंतर है, वो आज भी जिंदा हैं, हमारे आपके बीच मौजूद हैं। और अगर कोई इंडिया गेट पे आके कहता है कि तुम कितने हिडमा मारोगे, हम हर घर से हिडमा निकलेगा, तो इसका मतलब कि वो यहां भी है। इसे समझने की जरूरत है। और जो अरुंधति राय ने जो लिखा कि वहां के लोग बताएं, तो कुछ फैक्ट्स जो हैं वो पूरे आर्टिकल आप पढ़ेंगे तो छुपा लिया। जैसे जब ये सीपीआई माओइस्ट बना 2004 में, पीडब्ल्यूजी पीपल्स वार ग्रुप और मार्क्सिस्ट कोऑर्डिनेशन कमेटी दोनों का विलय हुआ। मार्क्सिस्ट कोऑर्डिनेशन कमेटी मेनली झारखंड और बिहार के एरिया में बहुत सक्रिय थी, और पीडब्ल्यूजी जो था वो छत्तीसगढ़, गढ़चिरौली, आंध्र प्रदेश, उड़ीसा, इस मामले में था। और जैसे ही ये विलय हुआ 2004 में, तब ये रेड कॉरिडोर का सामना हुआ। बात रेड कॉरिडोर शब्द तभी आया कि ये अब नेपाल में भी नक्सली थे, तो पशुपतिनाथ से तिरुपति तक का पूरा रेड कॉरिडोर हो गया इनका। ये कहीं भी आ जा सकते हैं, इनको कोई रोकने वाला नहीं है। लेकिन मैं इस पे नहीं हूं। मैं 2007 में इनका फर्स्ट और लास्ट कांग्रेस हुआ था बिहार में 2007 में। उस कांग्रेस का जो रेजोल्यूशन है वो इस देश की सत्ता को उखाड़ के फेंकने का है खूनी क्रांति के माध्यम से। चलिए वो तो लड़ाई होगी। कश्मीर का समर्थन है कि कश्मीर को आजाद करो। नॉर्थ ईस्ट के जितने भी अलगाववादी आंदोलन है सबका समर्थन है। यानी कि ये सिर्फ वहां पे आदिवासियों के हकों के लिए लड़ने नहीं गए थे, जिनको ये अरुंधति राय जो बता रही थी कि ये गांधीयन है, आधुनिक गांधीयन है जिनके हाथ में गन है, वो नहीं था। आज भी हमें यह समझाने की कोशिश की जाएगी, तो हमें इस नैरेटिव से बचना जरूरी है। पहला तो मैं ये कर दिया क्योंकि वो बहुत महत्वपूर्ण है। दूसरा जो है कि 2-3 मैं घटनाएं बताता हूं जिससे आपको समझ में आएगा कि लड़ाई हमने कैसे जीती, दिल हमने कैसे जीता, क्या पैशन था जो इतनी जल्दी 2-3 साल के अंदर में ये माओवाद लगा कि यह खत्म हो गया, जो कि पहले लोग सोच नहीं सकते तो कैसे हुआ। मुझे ध्यान है मैं मार्च 2022 में होम मिनिस्टर के साथ मैं जा रहा था। रात में जगदलपुर में हम रुके थे, कोबरा बटालियन का हेडक्वार्टर है वहाँ पे, और हम अमित शाह जी से काफ़ी लंबी बातचीत हुई। तो हमने कहा कि आप कहाँ कल, बोले कल सुबह तुम्हें ले चलता हूँ और वहाँ चल के देखो क्या है। तो जो फॉरवर्ड ऑपरेशन बेस है वो सुकमा जिले में था, उसका नाम था पुटकपल्ली, और वो बेस लगभग 100-125 किलोमीटर दूर है जगदलपुर से। तो मुझे लगा कि आप नक्सलियों के बीच जा रहे हैं, आपको डर नहीं लगता है? तो उन्होंने कहा कि मैंने जब वहां पे 2 साल पहले बेस खोला था, मैंने जवानों को वादा किया था कि मैं तुम्हारे साथ आके खाना खाऊंगा और मुझे खाना खाना है वहां। तभी उनको भरोसा होगा कि पूरी सरकार और सब हमारे साथ लगे हुए हैं। सुबह जब हम निकले हेलीकॉप्टर से, लगभग 50-55 मिनट, 60 मिनट लग गए होंगे जाने में वहां। तो आईबी चीफ थे वहां पे, डायरेक्टर आईबी भी थे, जो डिप्टी एनएसए थे साथ में, होम सेक्रेटरी साथ में थे, वो तो थे ही। वहां जब मीटिंग हो रही थी तो ये मैं आपको बता रहा हूं कि ये ऑपरेशनल चीजें हैं, पुलिस की चीजें हैं कि भाई गृह मंत्री हैं, वो जा सकते हैं करने के लिए। जो आप अंदर में बैठे हुए थे और वो दिखा रहे थे कि ये सुकमा का ये इलाका है, यहाँ पे हमारा इतना हो गया, यहाँ इतने नक्सली हैं, इतने सब ये हैं, ये हम कर लेंगे। फिर उनका फोटो आया कि यहाँ हमने एक स्कूल खोला है, एक यहाँ हमने प्राइमरी हेल्थ सेंटर खोला है, और यहाँ पे एक राशन की दुकान भी है। बोले अरे स्कूल का फोटो तो अच्छा लग रहा है, ये ऐसा ही है या तुम लोग ऐसे दिखा रहे हो? तो उन्होंने कहा नहीं सर ऐसा ही है। बोले क्या मैं देख सकता हूं? 2 मिनट के लिए सब चुप हो गए, क्योंकि वो अगर कैंप देखेंगे तो लगभग 200 जवान है, सामने एक पहाड़ी सा टीला ऊंचा सा है। जवानों ने बताया कि वहां चारों तरफ कौन नक्सली कोई नहीं जानता है, कहां कहां आईडी लगी हुई कोई नहीं जानता है। जब वो चुप हो गए तो उन्होंने कहा कि देखो मैं अचानक आया हूं, अचानक बाहर जाने के लिए बोल रहा हूं, किसी को नहीं मालूम होगा, मुझे कोई एम्बुश करने के लिए नहीं बैठा होगा, लेकिन फिर भी अगर खतरा लगता है तो मैं नहीं जाऊंगा। फिर खैर उनके डीजी थे, उन्होंने कहा कि नहीं सर हम देखते हैं, व्यवस्था करते हैं। वो सब 5-10 मिनट में पूरा लाइन सब लेके दौड़े और सैनिटाइज किया। हम जब वहां गए तो जिस ढंग से बच्चों से मिल रहे थे, लोगों से मिला, लोगों से कहा कि राशन मिलता है, कोई पैसे तो बीच में नहीं मांगता, राशन इतना किलो जाता है, मिलता है कि नहीं मिलता है। जो छोटा सा डिस्पेंसरी था वहां पे कि क्या क्या यहाँ पे है तुम्हारे पास, क्या कैसे बीमारी जाते हैं यहाँ पे। लोगों से पूछा जो हिंदी जानते थे उनसे कि भाई क्या चाहिए। मोबाइल टावर, डीएम वहां बैठा था, एचएम है तो डीएम होगा। बोला कि तत्काल कल मुझे लेटर लिखो और एक जियो टावर वालों को भेजो, मैं आगे करूंगा, लग जाना चाहिए 1 महीने के अंदर इसमें काम शुरू होना चाहिए। ये पैशन जो है ना, वहां पे वो नक्सली मारे नहीं गए थे। ये पैशन है कि हमारे अपने लोग, लाखों लोग जो बुनियादी सुविधाएं हैं उससे वंचित हैं। सरकार की योजनाएं, सरकार का फ्री राशन है, फ्री घर है, कुछ भी उनको नहीं मिल रहा, यहां मुझे पहुंचाना है। और मेरे सामने वो उन्होंने वहां जो एफओबी का था, डॉक्टर भी वहाँ होते हैं, चूँकि 200 हैं तो सबके साथ। तो उन्होंने कहा कि यहाँ अगर कोई बाहर का आता है, कोई बीमार होता है, तो उसको तुम्हें देखना। बोला कि सर आते हैं। कितने लोग आ जाते हैं? तो ऐसे-ऐसे आते हैं। क्या बीमारी लेके आते हैं वो? क्या उनको ज़्यादातर कॉमन बीमारी होती है? कब-कब क्या होता है? फिर वहाँ का जो डीआईजी था बोले कि भई ये दवाइयाँ इन समय पे होनी चाहिए यहाँ पे। ये एक जो मैं कह रहा हूँ कि ये रोड अहेड भी है कि आगे हम बस्तर में अगर डेवलपमेंट चाहते हैं, तो डेवलपमेंट किसका? भाई डेवलपमेंट तो वहाँ के लोगों का होगा ना। सड़कें किसके लिए बनेगी? वहाँ के लोगों के लिए बनेगी। जो हॉस्पिटल्स, जो तमाम चीज़ों की बात कर रहे थे कि हम ये बना रहे हैं, वहाँ पे एजुकेशन सिटी बन रहा है, बाकी चीज़ें बनी, किसके लिए बन रही हैं? और जो मैं शायद 2023 में जो बस्तर ओलंपिक था और मैं गया हुआ था, 1.25 लाख 1.5 लाख जो लोग थे वहाँ के आए हुए, जो मैं लगाव देखा उसमें, जो उन लोगों में उत्साह देखा, उस दिन मुझे लग गया था कि ये अब नक्सल यहाँ पे इन लोगों के साथ नहीं टिक पाएंगे। तो जो सिक्योरिटी ग्रिड था, जो 600-700 हर 5-7 किलोमीटर पर एक फॉरवर्ड ऑपरेशन बेस बनाए गए, वो दरअसल सिक्योरिटी ग्रिड नहीं है। वो सरकार की योजनाएं से जनता कैसे जुड़े। वहाँ आंगनवाड़ी भी जा रहा है, वहाँ राशन की दुकान भी जा रही है, वहाँ स्कूल भी जा रहा है, और सिक्योरिटी जब वो 5 किलोमीटर के दायरे 6 किलोमीटर बन गया तो वो सड़कें भी जा रही हैं। और इस ढंग से सारी चीजें जो हैं वो वहां पे ठीक की गई। अब जो आगे की बात जो अब समझ में आ रही है कि आगे आखिर करना क्या है, जो मुझे लग रहा है कि जो अमित शाह का, जो सरकार का पैशन है, और जो वहां के कुछ एक्सपेरिमेंट्स हैं, जैसे एक जशपुर जो है, जहां के शायद वहां के मुख्यमंत्री भी हैं, उस जिले के एक डीएम थे, और जशपुर में आप जानते हैं महुआ है, वहां पे मतलब शहद बहुत मिलता है, बाकी सब जो पदार्थ हैं वहां पे काफी वो मोटे अनाज ये सब बस्तर में वो होता है। वहां से उन्होंने जशपुर के नाम से जश प्योर करके एक ब्रांड बनाया डीएम ने, और उसके कुकीज हैं, उसके लड्डू हैं, और क्या टेस्टी है, और बाकी जगह मिलता भी है। मैं तो हमें तो उन्होंने दिया, और सब लोग इतना वहाँ पसंद कर रहे हैं, वहाँ लोग ले भी रहे हैं। मतलब छत्तीसगढ़, रायपुर वगैरह में मैं देखता हूँ कि वहाँ वो बिक भी रहा है। यानी कि उनकी जो चीजें हैं, उन्हीं से कैसे हम बेहतर ब्रांड, बेहतर उत्पाद, और जिसकी मांग है, मुझे लगता है कि जस्ट प्योर जो है वो दिल्ली में ज्यादा कीमत पे ज्यादा लोग खरीदेंगे, तो वो यहां कैसे पहुंचे। वो अभी वो डीएम थे, मेरी बात हुई है, अब तो दिल्ली आ गए हैं, वो उनकी पोस्टिंग हुए। वो शायद इसी के लिए किया गया है कि वो डेवलपमेंट मॉडल वहां खड़ा करना है, तो कैसे खड़ा करना है। तो ये सारी चीजें जो हैं वो महत्वपूर्ण है। डेवलपमेंट का मॉडल जो मैंने देखा है, खासतौर पर नॉर्थ ईस्ट में भी देखा है, जो अमित शाह के साथ बहुत ट्रेवल किया है मैंने, वहाँ भी देखा है, और बाकी जगह तो जहाँ बड़ी इंडस्ट्री नहीं आ सकती है, वहाँ पे सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप, कोऑपरेटिव, ये बहुत काम करता है। और खास तौर पे इन आदिवासी इलाकों में जिन आदिवासियों के पास अपने उतने पैसे नहीं है, पूंजी लगा नहीं सकते हैं, लेकिन अगर 25-50-100 जुड़ गए, उनको आपने गाय दे दी, उनको जो चीजें वहां चाहिए, भेड़ दे दिए, बकरी दे दिए, कुछ जो उत्पाद होगा वो उनकी आमदनी, वो देश के अर्थव्यवस्था में एक तरह से वो शामिल हो जाएंगे, योगदान करने लगेंगे। ये रोड अहेड है, और मुझे जो लगता है कि इसमें किसी के पास मतलब क्लैरिटी बिल्कुल है क्या काम करना है। जब तक आपको क्लैरिटी नहीं होती है, तब तक आप कोई जंग नहीं जीतते हैं, या किसी का दिल भी नहीं जीतते हैं। ये नक्सलियों के खिलाफ जंग भी जीता गया, और वहां के जो लोग हैं लोकल, उनका दिल भी जीता गया। और जो एक उदाहरण और देता हूं मैं, जिससे आपको पता चलेगा कि जवान जो है, हाँ बस कर रहा हूं 2 मिनट में, कि जवानों ने कैसे आगे जाके अपनी क्षमता से ज्यादा के काम किया। एक बार मैं बैठा हुआ था कहीं, शायद 2022 की बात है, 23 की। तो मैंने पूछा कि सर अब आजकल ऑपरेशन नहीं हो रहा है। तो उन्होंने कहा यार बहुत दिक्कत हो गई है, मुझे मेरे 4-5 जवानों के पैर काटने पड़ गए। हमें क्या हुआ? तो बोले कि वो सर्च के लिए जाते हैं, तो नक्सलियों ने क्या किया कि वो लोहे का स्पाइक बना के वो गाड़ देते हैं और उसमें जहर लगा देते हैं, और वो जहर इतनी तेजी से फैलता है कि 5 जवानों के पैर काटने पड़ गए। फिर मैंने कहा कि रोको इसको, हमारे जवान के पैर कटेंगे तो ऑपरेशन नहीं होगा। फिर नए बूट्स बनवाए गए जिसमें आगे सेंसर लगाया गया। वो 4-5 जवान आगे घूमते थे, अगर कहीं वो सेंसर आ जाए, मतलब उनकी स्पाइक है लोहे का, तो उसको निकालते थे, फिर आगे जाते थे। दूसरा, फिर बाद में उन्होंने क्या किया नक्सलियों ने कि वो बांस के स्पाइक बनाने लगे। फिर उससे निपटने के लिए अलग तरह से जूते लाए गए कि भाई जवानों का नहीं चाहिए। और जो सबसे बड़ा जो ऑपरेशन था, वो कुरगुट्टुलु की पहाड़ी जो है, हाँ वो जो पहाड़ी पे ऑपरेशन था, वो 19 अप्रैल से शायद 11 मार्च तक ऐसे कुछ था। 20-21 दिन सीआरपीएफ के डीजी रायपुर में थे, 4 बार वहां विजिट किए, और उन्होंने मुझे खुद बोला कि हर दिन अमित शाह 5 बार कम से कम फोन करे, 4 से 5 बार, कहाँ कहाँ क्या हो रहा है, हमारे जवान क्या है, कहाँ है, क्या कर रहे हैं, क्या जरूरत है ये बताओ। जबकि उस वक्त ऑपरेशन सिंदूर भी चल रहा था, यहाँ पे पहलगांव की घटना हुई, उसके बाद भी गृह मंत्री का ये डेडिकेशन था उसके लिए। तो ये जो पैशन है, डेडिकेशन है, और चीजों की क्लियर कट समझ है कि हमें क्या करना है, उससे यहां तक आए हैं। अब आगे कुछ न हो इसके लिए हम सबकी जिम्मेवारी है कि जो ये नैरेटिव फैलाया जाता है कि एक सोशियो इकोनॉमिक प्रॉब्लम है, वहां के लोगों की रक्षा के लिए था, इससे हम सबको बच के रहना है। उनका क्लियर कट एम्बिशन क्या है, वो 2007 के उनके कांग्रेस का जो रेजोल्यूशन है उसमें बिल्कुल क्लियर है, आप नेट पर ढूंढने के मिल जाएगा। और 2010 की जो दंतेवाड़ा घटना में 76 जवानों की मौत है, उसके लिए जितने नक्सली जिम्मेवार हैं, उतने वो भी जिम्मेवार हैं जिन्होंने उसको गांधीयन विद ए गन कहा था। ये हमें क्लियर कट समझना पड़ेगा।
जी, आई थिंक आपने बहुत कॉम्प्रिहेंसिवली आइडियोलॉजिकल जो कवर होता है नक्सलिज्म का, उसके बारे में बहुत डिटेल में बताया, और बहुत वैल्यूबल ग्राउंड लेवल एनेक्डोट्स आपने शेयर किए हैं, जो हमें सिक्योरिटी के बारे में भी बताते हैं, गवर्नेंस के बारे में भी बताते हैं, विचारधारा के बारे में भी बताते हैं। और आपने लोकल प्रोडक्ट्स की बात की थी। 2 साल पहले मुझे बस्तर जाने का मौका मिला था, तो वहाँ से मैंने छत्तीसगढ़ हर्बल्स के हमें कुछ प्रोडक्ट्स वहाँ पे लेने का मौका मिला था। एंड मैं कह सकता हूँ कि दिल्ली में आपको नहीं मिलता है इतने अच्छे जो प्रोडक्ट्स हैं वहाँ के लोकल प्रोडक्ट्स। अनफॉर्चुनेटली क्योंकि एंटरप्राइज वहाँ पे पहुँच नहीं पाता है, जो एक अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलना चाहिए, एक इकोनॉमिक फ्रीडम मिलना चाहिए वहाँ के लोगों के लिए, दैट हैज़ बीन डिनाइड फॉर अ वेरी लॉन्ग टाइम because of the problem of Naxalism. And I still very fondly remember, these products that I got from Bastar. And I want to invite Shivesh ji to, in a sense, also continue some of the themes raised by Neelu ji. In particular, security and governance are important, and they're two very important dimensions, but there is this ideological, political dimension to this problem. And which cannot be ignored. And I wanted to particularly ask you to throw some light on what kind of ideological lessons that the Indian state should be learning, and the Indian people, society, can take away from these decades of this particular problem. Shivesh ji, if I could invite you.
Thank you, Kamal ji and Alok ji, for inviting me here to share my thoughts on this issue. And respected dignitaries, you have shared really a very insightful thoughts and ideas, experiences of yours. Thanks to you and to all my fellow audience. I'm here and I'll throw some lights on the policy perspective also, here, because I think that was only the lagging, that, what was the ideas. And before this, because I have been tracking the government activities from 2000 onwards, when Modi government came into center, and then how, in a very focused way, government made some plans and all. And when I got an opportunity to work on these things, the policies, and I did some reverse engineering also, when Amit Shah ji announced on 31st March 26 that now, we are a Naxal free India. In this reverse engineering, I found that earlier, before 2014, when the government were working on this problem, the biggest issue was that they only consider it as a law and order issue. Post that, after 2014, the government started realizing the actual root cause behind this. And then there are 3-4 factors also came into picture. One is that government deficit was there. The second one is that economic exclusion was there. And the third one is societal distrust on the state. So they all come in a combined way, made a complete, the packet of the issues which actually spread in that Naxalite areas, Naxal belt. And post that, then government started working on a whole of a society security model. That was not only the government model, that was whole of a society security model. And when I did some reverse engineering on that, I found 4 fundamental layers when government made plans to end this Naxalism from this Naxalite belt. The first one is state forces, security, state security. Earlier also, state used to use these forces, but they thought that this is the only solution to provide for this Naxalite things. But this is a matter of concern that security forces only enable the areas societal neutralization. They ensure neutralization only. They cannot activate the society. So the second layer come there as a state legitimacy, because once security ensure the issues that okay, now this is the place, the area is neutralized, then after, how you have to ensure the trust into the society, then the governance come into the picture. And the second layer of the whole of the society security model of the Modi government was this legitimacy of the government. Then the third thing is come into the picture, societal participation. When government made this plan, they understood that government can ensure society to feel them safe, but they cannot stimulate society to move forward. And for that, societal participation is very important. And then the fourth one is that once society is ignite, society is active to move further, what is the motivating factor for them? Then it comes for the aspiration of the people. So there are 4 layers of the whole of the society security model for the ending, eradication of the Naxalites from India. And because of this, prior to the, how this from 2014, when Modi government came, until 31st March 2026, what actually has been changing into the complete, this area. Earlier, the notion was among the people of that Naxalite belt, that it is a fight in between state and Naxalites. And what has changed then with the time? That it is a fight in between the society, the citizen of India versus Naxalism. That is the biggest principal ideological change came into the mind of the people. And then society became a very useful asset, aligned, sync up with the government of India to fight against Naxalism. And that was the changing the mindset of the people was very important there. State versus Naxalism versus and citizen versus Naxalism. When I look back, when I do the reverse engineering of the whole thing, I found these two milestones when we started and then when we concluded. And then at this juncture of the time, how government is confident that it will not come back, because now society understood the whole propaganda of the Naxalism. And aside to this, if I come on these, the four pillars of this model, these are the foundations when government were making the plans how we can do something. Because if you were not clear about the root cause analysis, how will you able to solve that problem? So first of all, you have to understand that. And government was very precisely, accurately understood the problem, that is not only the law and order problem. The problem is multidimensional. And because of that, the solution, until and unless the solution will not be into multidimensional solution, result will not come out. And then they made four pillars of the whole of the society security model. The first pillar, as I told you, the security, hard security. In the hard security, earlier, there was no, earlier the people, think that, okay, if security forces lay down their life, what else? But first time, then governance started thinking that security forces also have a family. They also need security. They also need good infrastructure. They also need technical equipments so that they can be more efficient to solve the issues on ground. Earlier, there was not this kind of sense there. Security forces were laid down their life. Aside to this, then Samadhan problem also, because security forces were not only to fight, but the actual solution is to bring something, establish peace. And because of that, then Samadhan program came into picture. And when I say at this security things, I connect that how the CSR program, as sir was discussing, how the density of the cameras were there, how the density of other surveillance network were there, and that then there was a big support from the the telecom also, and everything created a whole ecosystem for the security forces that they could perform well. Aside to this, I have seen a lot of documents where the people who deployed there, they can understand and feel that, okay, behind me there are, and even when there was any accident, there was anything where any security force were there, the helicopters were also there to save their lives. Earlier, that was not happened. So it was a whole ecosystem where the security forces also stood on their own confidence that, okay, now we can bring some changes. Then the second pillar of it is obviously the connection revolution. The biggest issue is the connection, how this connection. Isolation is the oxygen of insurgency. And connectivity is the antidote of it. And when we speak about this connectivity, it is not only about roads. It is about, I have seen the government, the focus on BharatNet project also, that how they can enrich the areas of Naxalite belt with the high-speed internet connectivity by BharatNet. They ensured it. By the telecom, they ensured lot of mobile towers, as sir was discussing about this, so that the internet mobile connectivity can be ensured. And by that way, the isolation can be eradicated from the society. And when I say isolation, it doesn't only related to the mobility on the roads. It is about the mobility of the information also into the mobile. People can feel connected with the Facebook, WhatsApp also, and so that they can understand that government is not our enemy. They are our supporter, our well-wisher, and all the government-related benefits, they can get it. So from that perspective, this connectivity really became a game changer when it comes on 31st March 26 that, okay, we eradicated Naxalism. Now, then, the third pillar is dignity and welfare. Because at that time, there was an issue among youth also. There was an issue. अगर वो हथियार नहीं पकड़ेंगे तो वो करेंगे क्या? There was no dignified way to survive in Naxalite areas. There was lot of corruption seeded by the even by the people who are in politics there, and it was 3-4 decade long, 5-6 decades long problem. So at that time, the dignity of every citizen could be ensured by the government. And how it could be ensured? By the government welfare program, Jan Dhan, by the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, by the DBT, direct benefit transfer, Ujjwala Yojana. So by this Ujjwala Yojana, each female of the Naxalite belt could understand that how the government welfare scheme can ease their life at the level of their house, their kitchen. And then they start understanding that this fight is not about the state versus Naxalites, but it is about the citizen versus Naxalites. And then we come on a welfare related human capital. In human capital, we need to understand one very basic thing. We always think there are a lot of infographics flooded that, okay, this much of square kilometer areas are captured by Naxalites. First time Modi government started thinking about it is not about the land, it is about demographic dividend of the India, where the lot of youths are there whom we can involve into the development of our country. And because of that, this was not the fight of the area of the land. This was fight of the each and every citizen, the aspirational youth of India. And because of that, then lot of programs, ITIs were opened there. Adivasi related Chhatravas, there was some hostel programs were there, government started, so that students can come into the hostels, they can focus only on the education, and then they can come into the mainstream of the society. Otherwise, if they could not create this kind of strong leak-proof value chain, we could not even think about this kind of thing to celebrate on 31st March. And because of that, we could achieve this kind of milestone, success milestone, because of the whole of the society security model. Then, one more thing that I want to discuss here, that rehabilitation of the people. Because the people, unfortunately, they went into the Naxalite, they hold the gun against the state, against the India. What happened if they realize it? Their families realize it. And if any family want that they can come into the mainstream of the society, earlier there was no clear route of it. There were no clear route of it. But thanks to Modi government, then they really focus a lot about a value establishment for the rehabilitation of the people who misguided earlier, and now they came into the mainstream. And again, when they came into the mainstream, the easy loans government of India provided to them. Aside to this, then training, if they are below the age of 25, the education system was provided to them so that they can come into the mainstream of the society. Aside to this, if there was one thing that how society can involve into this community policing program, and that was really a very good step by the government, that how police can be a friend of the citizen of the local people, or citizen or the local people of the area, and the local people also can feel that police is my friend. And aside to this, in community policing program, there are a lot of CSR budget was pulled there at that time, that people even can, they at a village level also, they can get cameras also, the internet connectivities, lot of computer training programs were there, the modernization of the police stations also were there. So how the complete system in an integrated way worked, to all the youth here who are listening, it's really a very good learning for us to do a reverse engineering to understand about all these things. And what I understood that, it is all about, I believe that government did not build the road or the digital connectivity. They really created security corridor for the citizen of India. This is what I believe. The government did not created a welfare, but by this welfare, they they actually establish an ideological perspective for the state, for the government, so that every citizen can trust into the government. And with this, I would like to conclude my address here. Thanks all for your patience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Shiveshji. You brought out the various pillars of the policy action of the government. Tech modernization, like you rightly said at the beginning, has been extremely instrumental in for the government to achieve the kind of success it has had. And aside from that, rehabilitation, involving the community in policing, these have been extremely important in winning people's confidence. And like you rightly said, changing that mindset from looking at the Indian state in a particular way earlier, and then now realizing that there is much to gain, there is much to prosper. When people come together. Thank you for that perspective. We are running terribly out of time, so I'll very quickly invite just 2 or 3 questions. We can take them all together, and then the panel can then ask. So just a show of hands. Okay, so we'll begin with.
While creating roads and all, how many greenery and this greenery was destroyed? This I want to know.
Okay, all right. So I think Alok ji had a question.
Namaste everyone. So one question which some of you also spoke was with regards to how academic backing is something, and Neelu Ranjan sir extensively talked about it with regards to calling some of them the Gandhian warriors kind of thing. And in the current times, there are some people who have been talking about it, which is though from the forest the Naxalite thought to some extent has been removed, but from the academic institutions, from various think tanks, and the so-called urban Naxal term is something which is very important to understand. Even when we talk about the Politburo of the current the CPI, even the CPM party, even in the Politburos of these political parties, there might be some people who actually align to this particular thought process. So how to deal with this particular challenge of urban Naxalism, and this is particularly for our young students who are present here.
Okay.
So
Right.
how
Thank
to
you.
tackle this?
Thank you. Any other question before? Yes, Rabaz.
Hello sir, my main question is just that Naxalites का जो फाइनेंशियल बैकिंग थी, जो स्मगलिंग है तो चल रही थी, वाइल्ड लाइफ, ड्रग्स, आर्म्स स्मगलिंग, एक्सप्लोजिव स्मगलिंग, वो सब अब टैकल कैसे हुआ था उस टाइम पे?
As regards to counter LWE things, I will take those questions. Number one, as he's spoken about the development, whatever means the roads are being constructed or the other development projects. Certain problems regarding the forest and all these things. There are certain provisions. Whenever any linear development is there, means when road is being constructed, there is a provision of compensatory afforestation, and accordingly we are moving on. So means whenever any green cover is removed, more than that, it is being afforested somewhere else. The provisions are there, and accordingly, the department, the government of India is moving ahead. Second question, as academics, it's a very important aspect because there is a complete ecosystem behind all these things. As Ranjan Sir was also telling about, there is a complete ecosystem. Means these are available everywhere, maybe here also, maybe everywhere. Those who somehow consign to this philosophy, consign to this ideology. That's why I also said earlier, that we have removed this phenomena, suppressed, compressed, or this one, arrested physically. But it remains in the minds of the people. That's why civil society is very important. That's why these type of panel discussions, these type of things, the stories, because ideologies, as you said about CPI, Marxist or CPIM, whatever the party is there, for that matter, any ideology, it is welcome in our thriving democracy. We are mother of democracy. But only the element of violence, that's not acceptable. Secondly, whosoever is supporting it, मानसिक हिंसा जिसे कहते हैं, उस हिंसा को सपोर्ट करने वाले जो मानस है पीछे से, उन लोगों को भी उसी तरीके से देखना पड़ेगा, चाहे वो एकेडमिक्स में हो, चाहे जुडिशरी में हो, चाहे वो यूनिवर्सिटीज़ में हो या फिर मीडिया में हो. इसीलिए तो उदासी इतना थी कि 1005 लोग मर गए और कोई बड़ी स्टोरी नहीं हमने न्यूज़पेपर में पढ़ी. ये बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है.
नहीं, मैं एक ही जोड़ देता हूं, जो लोग डेवलपमेंट की बात करते हैं और डेवलपमेंट में पर्यावरण को जोड़ देते हैं, है ना, वो उनको मैं कहना चाहता हूं कि 1956-57 में सरकार ने पॉलिसी लाई थी, नेहरू प्रधानमंत्री थे, और उन्होंने कहा कि ये जो आदिवासी हैं ये बहुत खुश है, हम जो आधुनिक लोग जो है, ये हमारी आधुनिकता उन पे हम नहीं छोड़ सकते हैं कि हमारे साथ तुम बनो, डॉक्टर बनो, इंजीनियर बनो या हमारे से मोटर वो वहीं पे ठीक है, और उनकी जीवन शैली प्रकृति से जुड़ी हुई है और वही अच्छे रहने हैं, जिसका परिणाम हुआ कि आपने वहाँ डेवलपमेंट पहुंचाया, न उन लोगों के बीच में जिस ढंग से चीजें जानी चाहिए सरकार जानी थी, न एग्जीक्यूशन पहुंचाया, और वो जो गैप रहा, उसी गैप को 1980 के बाद तमाम नक्सलियों ने भरा और एक तरह से पूरे पॉपुलेशन को बंधक बना लिया. अब सवाल ये है कि जहां कहीं भी रोड बनता, रोड सिर्फ दंतेवाड़ा में बनेगा ऐसा तो नहीं है, रोड तो हर जगह बनता है, उसके नियम है, सुप्रीम कोर्ट है कि अगर इतने पेड़ काट रहे तो इतने आप लगाएंगे. ये बिल्कुल क्लियर बात है. अच्छा, रोड किसके लिए बनेगा? वहां के रोड हमारे लिए तो बनेगा नहीं, वो जो वहां रहने वाले लोग हैं वो तय करेंगे ना कि उनको रोड चाहिए कि नहीं चाहिए, उनके बच्चे इंजीनियर डॉक्टर बनने चाहिए कि नहीं बनने चाहिए, या वो तीर धनुष लेकर के ही वो घूमते रहे पूरी जिंदगी भर. ये जो लोग यहाँ बैठे हुए कुछ इंटेलेक्चुअल होते हैं जो इधर कहते हैं कि वहां पेड़ कट रहे हैं, या तो आप दो संख्या कितने पेड़ कट रहे हैं. तो ये मैं यही बात कह रहा हूं कि जो अरुणिमा राय जितनी जिम्मेवार थी 76 जवानों की मौत के लिए या जीवन घाटी के लिए, उसकी कोई चर्चा नहीं करता. इन्हें जितने लोग बोले सब बोले कि नक्सलियों ने मारा, और जिनको उन नक्सलियों को उन्होंने कहा कि ये गांधीयन विद गन है, उसको कवर किया, उसे कोई जीवाई नहीं है. इस देश को समझना पड़ेगा, युवाओं को सबको समझना पड़ेगा, और तब हम जाके सवाल पूछें.
Right. Thank you.
फाइनेंशियल उसके बारे में.
Yes, please.
As regards to financial choking, because they have different sources for the finances, because they were running the governments, and we have a very strong system nowadays. We can have trails for any transaction, and we have, the government has different means to choke that, and this financial choking is also the part of complete dismantling of the ecosystem of these people, these miscreants. So that system is already working, and that's why we could achieve, the government could achieve this success because of this reason, because all the initiatives, all the solutions, whatever could be there, they've all been implemented, and the current dispensation, the people in the system who had been looking after, and in the guidance of the Honorable Home Minister, they have done tremendous job so that we could achieve this. Now the country is Naxal free. Of course, it is physically. We have to remove it from the brains also, mind also, and we all are basically, we should work for it. And I would especially request the students, because you are the future, to any thing which is related to violence. So,
Right. Thank you. Sir, we're really out of time. So we can, of course, have informal conversations afterwards. But it's a very important moment, and ideology and vichardhara is not like a tap of water that it can be turned off suddenly. Yes, physically, Naxalism has been largely eliminated, but the other aspects which have created a certain ecosystem to support it remain in the society, and therefore there is a need for vigilance as far as ideas and ideology is concerned. And of course, to consolidate the security gains with governance gains. I think that is clearly the need of the hour, as highlighted by all the panelists. So it's a very significant moment in, I think, the country's trajectory, developmental trajectory. And I am extremely grateful to all our panelists for taking out time and really sharing very incisive comments and very insightful sort of remarks that you've shared with us. A lot of anecdotes that have come out today, which are deeply valuable when we look at this issue, because this is something that is not discussed as much as it should. And thanks to all of you in the audience for for your patience, and I hope we have a lot to reflect upon. So thank you so much to all of you.